This conference will now be recorded.
Everyone can hear you. There's no problem.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, my name is Zafar Iqbal.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you very much. Have a good evening, sir. You are right. So who are we talking to? Is it Mr. Lagari?
Yeah, it's Mr. Lagari. Thank you, Zafar Saab. We have connected now and we can hear you.
Oh, that's nice. And Arab, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, okay. I am Zafar Iqbal, so I'll be taking this strategic management from now on. Can I have a little bit of an introduction from yourself, if you don't mind, please? A bit of introduction so I can hear what you're
Yeah,
saying. Okay, Mr.
yeah.
Lagari?
So, my name is Ismail Lagari and I'm from Pakistan. Currently, I'm working for Shell as an operations manager. So that's pretty much about it. I'm pursuing this PGD course to further improve my professional skills and looking forward to learning from you.
So where are you based?
I'm based in Karachi right now.
All right, okay. You're a sales manager, yes, I guess.
Operations manager.
Operations manager. Nice to have you on the board.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
Ms. Larab?
Hi, my name is Lare Bakar, and I am working as business analyst in S&P Globals, and I'm pursuing this course to improve my professional skills. And I'm also looking forward for immigration, so it will increase my CRS score for immigration to Canada,
Okay,
and that's it. Yeah.
right, okay. Thank you very much for this short introduction. Let me explain who I am. I am Zafar Iqbal. I have been teaching many years over the years. I have some international experience as well as the UK experience. I have my master's degree and teaching courses and various other professional courses. So I'll be taking you for strategic management from now on. Okay. So sorry about the initial mess up. Um, um, Today, there's an Eid festivities in the UK as well, and some people are celebrating Eid tomorrow. So I don't know. I think Pakistan is celebrating tomorrow. Am I right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So happy Eid from now, and inshallah we'll celebrate the Eid tomorrow. So getting back
Thank you.
on.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So getting back onto the course. This course is a PGD course. This is OTHM organization called the OTHM Level 7 Postgraduate Diploma in Leadership and Strategic Leadership and Management. Is that right? You're on the right course? Are you on the right
Yes, we
course?
are on the right course.
You
Yeah,
are on
we
the
are
right.
on the
Yes.
right.
Do you know anything about the diploma? Do you know anything about the Level 7 course? How many units you need to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How many? How many
Um,
units do you need to do?
two optional courses and four major courses.
Yeah, four compulsory courses and
Yes,
two
compulsory.
optional courses, 120 credits in total, 20 credits per subject, and multiply by 6 subjects without the dissertation, that will give you 120 credits. Okay, the qualification is an OTH level 7 in Diploma in Strategic Management Leadership, and it's approximately a year's course. I mean, you can finish earlier if you want to, provided you finish the assignments and get them a pass grade. Okay, so it's entirely by coursework, and the course this is recognized by UK authorities, and it's diplomas on the RQF, which is called Regulated Qualification Framework. This is equivalent to master's degree, but without the dissertation, level 7. Okay, and if you want to carry on with the dissertation, you can carry this course and top up with an MBA or a master degree later on. Okay, so that's the basic background. Getting back onto the strategic management, we want to do the Lo1 today, which is learning outcome. Okay, and the first learning outcome, there are How many learning outcomes? Do you know how many learning outcomes are there? Do you know what means by learning outcome? Hello?
Yeah, so
Hello?
learning outcomes are the result we are expecting from the
Yeah,
by the end of this course.
the resulting learning outcome is what we need to be able to do in order to complete the assignment, in order to complete the course. So the unit on strategic management, there are certain learning outcomes. I think there are 5 learning outcomes that you need to complete. Okay, and the first learning outcome is what we're going to be looking at today. And the first learning outcome is you need to look at the and external influences on organizational strategy. Okay, we need to be able to look at the external influences on organizational strategy. So I presume you know what an organizational strategy is. Okay, so the aim of this unit is to look at your understanding, is to look at the strategic change, to look at the ability to review strategic plans, and to look at the strategic options, and to create an implementation plan, and to lead organizational change. So this unit is about strategic analysis. Okay, so first of all, I think what you need to look at is what is the word strategy means. Any idea what you think strategy is?
It's the basic layout that we decide in order to create a pathway that we'll be following.
Right, okay. It's a strategy is something that you are looking to go by, or the thing that you need to do over a long term, the path that you want to follow. Okay, so this is the strategy, is the way you're going to do things. Okay, so when we are looking at the strategy, we need to look at the way we things are, the how you're going to do it, the options and the implementation, and the way we're going to do it. Okay, how are you going to achieve your option? So the one of the indicative contents is to look at the position where we are at the moment, where the position is in the current organization, or our organization, where it's in the current market. We need to look at the how we're going to look at the current position is we need to look at the some kind of internal strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. um, we need to look at the existing plans in organization, and the way forward. So that's about the organizational strategic position, is where our contents is, where our current position is, and where the forward to go from there. Okay, so this is what we mean by strategic analysis or strategy. Okay, basically it's a military a term. It comes from the Greek word, and strategy is the way you're going to achieve your. And what is management? Any idea what management is the coordination. Okay, the management is the cooperation, the coordination, the controlling bit, the coordination, and administering the tasks of people under yourself, and giving them directions. Okay, so there's a difference between a management and a strategy. The management is the coordination, the controlling, the coordination, the directing, and organizing, planning a task in order to get the objective of the organization. Okay, there are 3 types of strategic things we need to look at. One's a corporate strategy, one's a business strategy, and one's a market strategy. So the corporate strategy is the overall strategic analysis of an organization. Okay, the corporate level is the fundamental and the foundational question of what you want to achieve. The business strategy is the way, okay, or how you are going to do the strategy, and the market strategy is how you're going to grow from a certain business unit or whatever. Okay, so there are 3 types of strategies. One's a corporate strategy, the other one's a business strategy, and one's a market strategy. The corporate strategy is the overall strategy of an organization, and business strategy is the way you're going to do about your competitors, the way you're going to tackle your competitors. And the market strategy is the market, the products, how are you going to grow, how are you going to get into the market, and the way you're going to get into. So this is the the thing we need to look at. Okay, how the strategic management started. It started in the 50s, 1950s, coming up to year 2000 and afterwards. Okay, so the 50s, during the 50s, the major thing that the strategy looked at was to look at the four areas. For example, in the 1950s, it was mainly to look at the budgetary planning and control of the organization. Later in the main issues were financial control. The emphasis was on budgets, project appraisals, and financial management. So in the 50s, the main dominant part of the strategy was to look at the budgets and finances and the planning and controlling and project appraisal. Come in 1960s, after in the 60s, we looked at the strategy developed a little bit more, and it looked the corporate planning. It looked the overall planning of organizations, where we looked at the planning of the main issue was to look at the growth of an organization, the forecasting, the investment, the looking at the corporate planning, corporate formatting, and forecasting, and the future planning. Okay, so that's the evolution has developed from 50s to 60s. Come in 1970s, the 60s corporation or corporate development moved on to the corporate strategic level. Okay, where we looked at the diversification of organization or products, looking at the portfolios of different market share, looking at the different products and how the organization develops into different products, looking at the global market share, looking at the diversified products, looking at the differentiation, looking at the different types of so looking at different types of products, so that the company does not rely on one particular type of project or one type of product. Okay, so this was to mainly look at the diversification. In the 70s, this diversification, this moved to a further analysis of positioning. In other words, where do you want your organization to move from? Which position are you going to capture? Okay, what's your position in the market? So this, the dominant theme was look at the competitive industry competition, looking at the other organizations and where you fit in that particular market. Okay, and how you can see yourself developing into a different position from your competitors. Okay, so mainly it was to do with competition, mainly it was to do with the positioning, mainly it was to do with your active using of assets management, and mainly to see how competitive you are against your organizations, other organizations. Okay, in the 80s and 90s, the theme moved on to competitive advantage, cost advantage, resource analysis, and restructuring, engineering, BPR. Okay, looking at the outsourcing, cost effectiveness, and cost competitiveness. During the 1990s and afterwards till today, the main theme is to look at the innovation and how the economy is developed into a knowledge economy, and we looked at the competition against virtual organizations and how we move from there. Okay, so mainly it's an IT and mainly it's competition in the organizations using the technology bit. Okay, are you following me?
Yes, we are.
Any question at that time?
No, it's still clear, Zafar.
Okay,
Thank you.
so when we look at the strategic management process, there's a 2-3 stage process. Okay, so first of all, the strategic framework, or AFI, which is analysis, framework, and implementation. What it looks at is a couple of stages there. When you look at the organization, when you looked at an organization and it wants to move from one place to another, we have to develop some kind of strategic options. We need to look at where the company is at the moment, and we need to look at the internal strengths, and we need to look at the external strengths or weaknesses, and we develop some kind of options. We implement those kind of options, and then evaluate them and review them. Okay, so there's three stage process, or 3 or 4 stages of process. Let me repeat. So we look at the first of all, we look at the organization in total. We need to look at its vision, mission, objectives. We need to look at its statements. Then we need to look at the where the company is now and where the company wants to move in the future. Okay, so the company now is looking at the internal analysis, which is moving its internal SWOTs, and we look at the external threats, external analysis. So these things we need to carry out before we try and develop our objectives. Okay, so once we've done the internal and external analysis, we move on to establish some kind of objectives. Once we've done the objectives, short-term objectives, medium and long-term objectives, we choose certain options from there, and we select the best options or objectives that we want to follow. Right after the objectives have been selected, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 objectives, not more than 3 or 4, then we need to look at the strategies, how we're going to develop strategy in order to achieve those objectives, and then pick up the best 1 or 2 objectives that we want to fulfill over the longer term, and then evaluate them. After your implementation, we evaluate them. Okay, so this is the whole model of strategic process. So let's look them in detail, a little bit more details. How are we going to evaluate the position of an organization? Okay, so for example, if you are an organization, we need to look at Johnson and Scholes says together, strategic position is concerned with the impact on strategy of the external environment, internal resources and competencies. And we need to look at the internal organization, like culture, its political situation, and its current strategy, and then we move forward. Okay, so looking at the position of an organization in its current market, we need to look at the different influences, different expectations, different resources, internal and external both. Okay, and one way to do this analysis is to look at the SWOT analysis, which is strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threat model, which looks at your organization at internal level. It looks at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Strengths are something that you are good in, our organization is good in, and weaknesses is certain problems, certain issues that the company is facing or organization is facing, and we want to develop those weaknesses into opportunities. And opportunities are things that you are relating your strengths in order to create some opportunities, or treating your weaknesses into threats. Once you got these opportunities, we need to look at the threats, which is the threats from other competitors or from other external sources. So SWOT analysis is a tool that you use to create an analysis in its own right, and that can be used to develop internal strengths, internal weaknesses, internal opportunities and threats. Okay, so the strengths and weaknesses are, for example, where strengths is where we good at, where weaknesses are where we poor at, opportunities is where we can go forward, what options there, and threats are from the other competitors. Okay, and who are our competitors in the market, in the organization's external threats from other competitors. Okay, so this is the tool we use to look at our own strategic position. External threats, external analysis can be done by using a pest or pestle analysis. Okay, so pest or pestle, TLE, you can add, and looks at the other external threats. P is looked at, P looks at political problems, for example, political instability in a country, for example, political turmoil, political instability, problem during the election times, problems created by trade unions, for example, and they create problems for politicians. So therefore, the P is political situation in a country, which affects the market, which affects the organizations, which affect the confidence of organizations, and that's an external threat. So when a company looks at their threats, they have to look at the external threats as well as internal threats. Okay, and the P is very important factor in a country. If the country is unstable, for example, if the country is having a problems politically, then problems are that may not get investments, may not get the transactions, may political confidence is lacking from the businesses, so therefore the organization is affected. Okay, does it make sense to you? Hello, am I making sense, Mr. Lagari and Lareb?
Yes,
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 sir. Yes,
you are.
sir.
Okay, so the
Yes.
political factors are very important. Okay, so the P is denotes political factors. Um, E is economic factors. For example, maybe there's a organization or a country is going through an economic turmoil, economic problems. Probably there's economic instability, maybe there's low investments, maybe there's low confidence, maybe there's a problem in the exchange rate, maybe there's a problem in the industry, maybe there's no investment coming through because of the political situation, because of the political turmoil. So it's interconnected, political and E is connected. Okay, so economic factors, trade boom and trade cycle, maybe the organization is being affected by these economic factors like inflation, for example, exchange rates, for example, confidence level, and so on. So these economic factors are very important when you look at the external environment. Come next, social and cultural factors that affect organizations. Social factors and cultural factors. Social factors like, for example, demographic or earning power or geographical situation of a country affecting the social class. Okay, cultural factors like religious factors, like equalities, like racial tensions, like racial problems or cultural issues, um, religious issues, um, income factors. Okay, so these type of educational factors, income, what type of people are you getting at, what type of market are you capturing depending on their level of income. So these social factors are very important when organizations look at their markets. The level of people's level of income, there's education, there's background, there's sexual or gender differences, there's class differences, what type of houses they live in, what type of areas they live in. So when you need to look at the company, you need to look at the external threats, you need to look at the social factors and cultural factors. Okay, the next factor coming on to the T, which is technological factors, which is the fourth letter, is the PEST. The technological factors, i.e., what type of company is it, what type of company are you competing against, what type of development technologically are you facing technological boom, or you're falling behind on the technology. If the organization is not following the technology, then therefore their products or their total output or their total results will be affected because they'll be lag behind not using the technological factors. Okay, so technology is very important because this affects the communication, this affects the development, this affects the human resources, this affects their investment, this affects their the whole progress of an organization. And the last two letters, which is the L and E, which is the legal and economic, which we looked at in legalistic issues, for example, legal factors, courts, justices, the process of looking at and if a company wants to invest and what type of legal barriers they face in, or what type of problems, the issues they face in. So you need to look at the legal factors as well, how quick legal decision can be made. in a country will affect the organizations as well. And economic, as we said earlier on, inflation and banking and exchange rates and all this type of thing. Okay, so when we look at the external factors, we need to look at the pest analysis. When we are looking at the company's strategic position, we need to look at the SWOT analysis. Okay, so these are the two major tools that we use for internal and external evaluation of an organization. Another tool we can use is Porter's five forces model, which looks at the competitors, which looks at your competitive industry, which you so this looks at it's five forces. Why it's called five forces model is because if you look at the screen, can you see the screen? Lareb and Mr. Lagari, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this five forces model is developed by Porter, and why it's called five forces model is it looks at your industry, it looks at your competition, and it looks at your organization. Where is your organization in compared to your rivals? Where is your organization? How is your organization compares to its competitors? So the more the competitors, the more threatening position it is, and the more challenging position it is. Okay, so therefore it depends on how competitive your industry is. For example, if there is you're talking about the IT, you have lots of competition, and therefore you need to be better than other organizations. You need to do hard work in order to survive. Okay, so the competition is very, very important. The number of people, the number of suppliers, the number of competitors there are in existing industry. The more there are, the more better it is, but more competitive. So you need to work harder. Okay. So therefore, this is the first factor. Okay. The second factor is the threat of new entry. New entry means how easy it is for your competitors, for your other organizations to come into the market and take your market away from you. So for example, if it's very hard for newcomers in oil industry to come into the new industry because there's a lot of investment needed. Okay, whereas if you're looking at the small businesses, it's very easy to come into the market because the competition, though it's a lot of competition, but it's low investment, so you can move into the market quickly in a smaller business than a larger business. So threat of new entry into larger business, research and development areas, oil industry, technological, it's very difficult because it needs a lot of money, it needs a lot of investment. Chemical industry, for example, or pharmaceutical industry, for example, right? There's a lot of rules, regulation, health and safety issues, and it's quite competitive there. So the threat of new entrants is very difficult. So you need to look at the second factor, which is threat of new entry, how easy it is to come into the and what are the economic benefits of coming into the market. Okay, what are the issues, how easy it is, what the government policies, how are the law affecting, how is the environment affecting, is it easier to come into the competition or it's quite difficult, restrictions and so on and so forth. Okay, the third factor which Porter looks at the five forces model is threat from the substitutes. Are things like for example, if you make in butter, for example, how is your organization comparing with another organization producing similar type of products, which is closer to butter, like margarine, for example, or oil, for example, or other substitute. How easy it is. The more easy it is, it's easier for other competitors to come into the market and take your market share away from you. Okay, so you need to look at the power of substitutes. The fourth factor looks at the power of customers, the stakeholders, the people who are going to buy your product. Are they powerful? Are they not so powerful? Okay, what are they? What is their bargaining power? Are they big? Are they small? What's their size? If they if their order, for example, if your buyers is big, then that means you're going to have a harder time bargaining with them because they are bigger buyers. And the bigger they are, the more challenging they are. You have to offer them a lot of discounts, or you have to offer them a lot of allurements. You have to offer them a kind of a price bargaining with them. So therefore, you must the organization must look at the power of the customers so that they are not affected. Suppliers, lastly, power of suppliers. Again, the bigger the supplier, the more threatening they are to yourself, survival of threat, um, because they have a bigger buying power. So the um, customer is quite important, as well as the suppliers. So the more bigger the supplier is, the more bargaining power they have, and less the company power. You see, you have to depend a lot of finances. You are putting a lot of finances into bigger suppliers, so they can change around and affect your survival. Okay, so therefore you need to look at the power of suppliers. So for example, in Marks and Spencer, you must have heard Marks and Spencer is one of the bigger buyers in the market in England, in the UK, and they can dictate their terms of discounts from suppliers, because they are bigger. So they can dictate the prices of the products from the suppliers, and the suppliers have to give it at that price, because the suppliers are depending on these bigger buyers. So okay, so therefore they can dictate the product prices, and the profit margin may be affected because of the dictatorial pricing strategy of the suppliers. Okay, then are you okay with this? So the five forces model looks at your competitors, your suppliers, your how easy it is to get into a market, how easy it is to come out, how what's the bargaining position of suppliers, and where you are closer to substitutes. The five forces model looks at the market in its entirety, and you have to go and look at the market. Okay, this um, the Porter's five forces model is used to look at the external, okay, the external strategy of organization as well. The other tool you can use when you're looking at the strategic analysis is you look at the Porter's diamond model, because it's in a diamond shape. Okay, and it looks at similar conditions. It looks at you know it looks at the answers, how easy it is for people to compete, or the type of competitive advantage that the companies have over the others. All right, so the competitive advantage means who is able to produce or supply goods cheaper than the other organizations. So he looked at the four types of things, like demand conditions, and the factors condition, and related supporting industries, and firm and delivery of these. So he called these as diamond, because it depends on how cost effective a product can be um, for an organization, and how competitive advantage can help organizations to move forward. Okay, any questions so far? Are you okay with this? So when we look at the strategic analysis, we need to look at different types of models that we can use to uh, to make our strategic analysis, to make our strategic choices, make our strategic analysis, so that the companies can fare better than the other ones. Okay, another tool that you can use is the value chain, um, Porter's value chain, when you are looking at the internal analysis. Okay, so all this depends on how these factors are affected, and how these are matching against your critical success factors in the industry. the success factors, or the CSF, are our strengths, the same as the ones necessary for success of the market, and so on. Okay, so what we looked at what we looked at quickly is we looked at what is strategy, where does it come from, how has it developed over the years, from 50s to 60s to 70s to 90s to hundreds and 2000s and so on and so forth, and what type of topics they initiated in the 50s up till today, and how it has evolved over the years. And we looked at the type of internal model, internal how a company can look at internally using a SWOT analysis, how it can look at externally, which is using the pestle analysis, how it can look at its markets using the Porter's five forces model, how the company can make choices, and how they can develop and into new strategic marketing units, so that they are remaining competitive in the market. Okay, and then they implement those strategies. So the basic. Okay, so today's lecture looked at the what is strategy and how it's developed and what the options and what do we mean by, and what the type of tools we can use for developing internal and external position of the company. Okay, any question at this time? Are you following me, or you're not following me, or you are confused, or you don't know what I'm talking about? Hello,
It's all clear.
are you
It's all
sure?
clear. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
Lorraine, can she hear me? Right. We look at the. Is she still there, Lorraine? Is she still with us? Hello. Are you still with
Sir,
us?
I'm Hasham. I'm with you, and it's clear.
Okay. Any. Who is Lorraine there still? She's gone. Okay. So, for example, let's look at an example of the strategic. Let's look at a company called Apple Company. I'm sure you must have heard of the company. It's called Apple Inc. It's a computer company. It's an organization which is based in America. Okay, and it's looked at its organization. It's looked at business. Okay, and you can look at the organization's reports, how it has developed over the years. This company is using latest technology in order to do its business, and so that the company remains competitive in the organization, remain competitive in the market, right? It's looked how it's developed its business strategy from its experiences. It uh, used its unique ability to design and develop products like laptops and mobile phones and IT equipment. Okay, it stayed in a continuous business, so that it develops into new products by investing a lot of money, research, development, and it continues to grow in its products and remain competitive against its competitive organizations like Samsung and Google and Microsoft. Um, it has used its previous Porter's model, for example. It's used a SWOT analysis. It's used buying and negotiating powers. So it looked at five forces, substitute models to remain in competition. Okay, so it's quite important. It's that the companies like Apple stay in market using all these tools. So if you look at this screen here, can you see the screen? It has used a SWOT analysis. Okay, for example, it's if you look at the strength box, Okay, strength box is that it's a very high research and developing organization. It's a lot of the one strength is it's got a last high cost of development, high cost of research and development. It's got a lot of return on market share, 13.9%. It's very aggressive market company. It consistently changes its design, so that's one of its strengths. Its strength is brand loyalty or brand equity. It's the brand is quite recognized in the market. It's very strong presence in the market, so it's one of the strengths. Okay, it's look if you look at other strengths, it's a very consumer loyal organization. Its weaknesses maybe it's very limited distribution channels. I.e., it's very selective who it sells its product or who gives it right to the distribution industry. It's very selective in that sense. Its products are very short-lived, i.e., because it's continuously developing IT products. The products have shorter product life cycle, so therefore the product dies very quickly, and they develop into new markets. So for example, the phones, they continuously develop. One phone comes and the other one, iPhone and 5 and 6 and 7, so continuously developing. So therefore the previous model goes out of the window and the third one, new one, comes into the market. They capture the market and then move on to the new development product, so they're continuously evolving. So that's a strength. But because they are continuously developing, this can be a weakness. The product doesn't stay long in the market. Because of their product doesn't stay longer in the market, they have opportunities all the time to develop new products, to develop new iPhones and new laptops and new computer functions and new computer hardware and so on and so forth. So the opportunities, if you look at the opportunities column, right, they can develop their distribution channel. Because it's limited, because they have a smaller number of distribution channel, this can be turned, the weakness can be turned into an opportunity, i.e., they can tap in more, they can select more network operations. They can increase their market share by looking at these new channels of distribution, new channels of selling goods and services there. Okay, so this is an opportunity for them to go into the market and raising more products and raising more revenue in the sense. Another opportunity, they can create new product lines. Okay, because the products are selling in high quantities, because the product is selling in high quantities, but it's short lived, they have an opportunity to create more product lines. So therefore they can create new products and new ideas, and that is an opportunity for them, so to get into the new markets. Okay, looking at the threats, what kind of threats they have, of course, they have other competitors in the market, because the other competitors are more aggressive. They are also developing, like Samsung and like Huawei and like Microsoft. They are developing new products. This is quite a threat for them. So therefore the Apple company has to make sure that they stay in the market and produces new products. So therefore they need to do something about the threats facing from their competition, so that their products are not imitated, their products are not copied, their products are not copied and sold for nothing. Okay, so therefore they need to make sure that this threat is countered. Okay, another threat can be from the tax scandals they had, or labor costs, for example. If they want to move into the new developments of new markets, therefore they need to look at the new entries, new legislation, new um, methods of getting into the market, because they can't get cheaper or trained labor. Therefore this is quite a threat for them. Okay, so if you look at the SWOT analysis, the company has developed a SWOT analysis for itself, and with this in mind, they can move forward to developing their strategy. Okay. If you look at the Samsung's SWOT analysis, you can have a look at the SWOT analysis of Samsung. You know, their strengths are quite different to the strengths of Apple, because their SWOT analysis has strengths because they have more bigger market than the Apple. Okay, and so I'd want you to look at the SWOT analysis of Samsung, and you can read that from there and compare the SWOT analysis with the Apple company. Okay, from there you can develop strategies. Okay, so when you've done the SWOT analysis, you can develop some kind of strategies, options. Okay, to develop new products, new lines of so if you look at this Apple, if you look at slide 17, strategies to develop new products or new design is, for example, one strategy they can go for is to go in hand with new joint ventures, for example, with partners, with other global partners. This is one strategy they can follow. Or they can join other organizations in research and development, so that will bring their costs down, maybe more raise more in demand, maybe capture more share in the market. That kind of an opportunity strategy they can follow through. But it may work, it may not work. However, this is a strategy, this is an option, this is a thing they can use. This is a, they can follow this. Okay, so you can follow this strategy of opportunities and strategies of threats, and looking at the opportunities, they can move on there. Okay, and depends on what their strengths and weaknesses and opportunities are, they can go forward looking at this. Okay, threats. So this company can use its analysis to develop new strategies. So this 1.1, if you look at this 1.1, we had set out to do is critical evaluate the position of an organization in its current position. We looked at the current organization's position, and we looked at the SWOT analysis, and we looked at the external analysis and how the company can move forward from using its 5-4 portal model and move forward to compete against other organizations. Okay, and we looked at one company called Apple, how it has utilized its model of SWOT analysis to compete against the other organizations like Samsung, and how they are aligned with that. Okay, secondly is 1.2. We need to look at the analysis, how we can analyze the effect of existing plans on an organization. So i.e., we need to look at the planning of looking at the vision and looking at the broad objectives, and we need to look at how we can analyze our existing position to move forward, so that we remain organizational competitive and so on. Okay, and one organizational analysis is we have to make some choices. In other words, once you've done the SWOT analysis, we need to create some kind of choices. We need to look at the choices of the organization has, and we need to look at the options, we need to look at the implementation, and we need to look at the evaluation of our actions. Okay, our strategies. So this particular strategic analysis looks at the choices, the strategies, the implementation. Okay, so looking at this key factor, looking at this key thing, the key position is to look where we are. We need to look at the current position, and we need to look at the opportunities, threats, and weaknesses, and we need to look at the position of organizations as far as our organization is concerned compared with our competitors. And we looked at also external environment. Okay, and we moving into the uh, what type of resources we need to do all this. We need to look at our internal resources as again HR resources. We need to look at whether we've got some capacity to do it. We need to look at our stakeholders, whether they'll allow us to carry out our objectives or not. Okay, so we need to look at the external and expectations of influences of stakeholders. We need to a stakeholder is particular person or organization or a business or a unit or somebody who has an interest in our business, who has influenced over us, or we have been affected by them. So for example, a stakeholder can be our competitor, it can be our shareholders, it can be our managers, it can be our local people, it can be government, and so on and so forth. We must make sure that the stakeholder is invited in to work with us, because they are quite important. Okay, stakeholders can be internal and stakeholders can be external. Internal stakeholders like employees and managers and shareholders. External are society and competitors and the government and the suppliers and the local people and the customers. Okay, so we need to look at the how are we affected by their action, or how they affect us, in other words. Okay, so we need to look at their what interest do they have with us. So for example, if you're opening a school, for example, the type of stakeholders that we have is students, parents, um, and government. Okay, and our other competitors in the education sector, and so on. Okay, so we need to ask them what type of influences they have us, what influences they want to have over us, and we can call them a meeting, we can ask them, we can ask their opinion, we can ask their comments. So therefore we are affected by their, okay, we are affected by them. Yeah, so when we need to plan for our organizational objectives, we need to consult with other stakeholders, definitely. Okay, and then we can achieve our goals. If other organizations we have to talk about, um, there are, you know, um, government, non-governmental organizations that are affected by stakeholders and so on. So you need to look at those as well. Competitors, we need to look at our competitors. We need to look at our external and internal organization. We need to look at the culture, belief, internal culture and external culture. By culture, we mean the practices, the behavior, the type of influences people have on the organization, through their dress code, for example, through the actions of employees, through the actions of others. The cultural of the organization should reflect the progress of the organization. If the, for example, if the managers coming late in organizations, who should be in the first managers coming early rather than late, that means the other employees are going to come late. Therefore it's very important that the culture is developed very nicely, so that the organization is affected positively rather than the negative. So if the manager, for example, comes with the scruffy dress, for example, he doesn't wear nice dress, what about the expectation? How do you expect the employees to wear? They will also wear the same. So the cultural of the organization, the culture of managers affects the nature of employees. Okay, the timekeeping, for example, the dress code, the color coding of letters heads in organization tells you something about the culture of the organization, the standard it has, the expectations, and so therefore we must be sure that the culture is affecting our organization to the best. Okay, so therefore it's very important that our in order for us to remain in organizational competitiveness, we develop a culture of good behavior. Okay, hello, are you okay? Are you with us? Can you hear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions so far? So what we looked at is quite detailed. We looked at quite a detail, but are you following the structure? What's the strategy and why is it important?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So yes, we need to look at the next. We need to look at the Apple, how they have developed a competitive advantage over the others. Okay, because of the they looked at their strategic position, they looked at their strategy internally and externally. How did they remain competitive with their other competitors? So we can say that they remained competitive because they developed different brand different products, different brand image. They have developed different research and development. They were looked at, they looked at the different types of um, ethical issues. They looked at not only the products, but they looked at the products over different types of products. They developed different ranges, differentiation. In other words, they different types of product and develop them into um, different types of products for different type of consumers, cheaper consumers, middle consumers, high earning. So therefore they capture the market because of their nature of the products they are. So they used some kind of strategies excuse me they use type of strategies which they call Michael Porter's strategy, which is generic strategy. They use the strategic business units. They use the competitive strategy, right? They use the competitive advantage strategy. So if you look at the Apple, they use different types of three. They can use three types of generic strategies, pricing, and each of them is looked at like this. For example, cost leadership, second one is differentiation, and third one is the cost focus. So using the differentiation, so if you look at the cost leadership, i.e. the cost the key factors they utilized to deliver the products so that their products are lower with input costs, economies of scale and experience, and process design, i.e. Maybe they can get a cheaper products from their suppliers. They developed over the years good relationship with their suppliers, so they can get quite good discounts from them. So therefore if they get discounts, they can produce products cheaply, they can sell cheaply, they can stay in market. They can get good economies of scale, i.e. because they are buying a lot of products, a lot of materials from their competitors, suppliers. They can ask to give them discounts. So if they get discounts, they can pass on these discounts in form of economies of scale, i.e. because they buy in bulk, because they buy in large quantities, because they are buying cheaply from their suppliers. They can pass on the cost to their customers. So and they remain in competition, they remain competitive with their competitors and stay better in. Okay, so they can use this cost leadership strategy to stay in business, okay, and stay in competition. Second one, they can use.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. When will the class end? Because we were told that it's going to take 1 hour.
Yes, I think we are just coming towards the end of because we had a little bit of issues starting. I mean, I'm going to come towards the end quickly. Okay,
Okay, ji.
if
Okay.
that's okay. If you want, I mean, I can continue with them next time. But I think
No, it's fine. You can complete.
I'm just going to quickly go over
Okay.
how the companies can remain in business. So they can remain in business using the cost leadership by getting bulk discounts and economies and experiences. And secondly, they can use the differentiation strategies, i.e., they can use the same product but differentiate the products. So, for example, if you look at the Coca-Cola, for example, they used Coca-Cola as a generic brand, but they differentiated over the years. They differentiated in the sense that they used plastic bottles for families. They use plastic bottles for youngsters. They used plastic bottles to look like portable, so they can people can take them away and use them rather than use the glass bottles as they used to be, right? So differentiation, they can use maybe they are using orange cola these days, or they are using sugar free product. So this is all product differentiation to stay competitive. And that, okay. And the other one is they can look at the focus strategy, i.e., they can just target a particular market, for example, young end of the market, or family oriented market, or in the middle of the road market. Okay, so they can stay competitive using these three types of strategies. Okay, other one, they can use combine these strategies to stay competitive, and if they fail, then they can review those strategies and look at the different options and stay competitive uh, using technology, using the other competitives in the market. Okay, so the last section was a quick section using how can the companies stay competitive in market. They can use competition, they can stay more competitive using their cost leadership. They can use their strategies to develop different products, but the product is the same but using for different type of markets to stay competitive, maybe in the pricing, maybe the product range, maybe the target different market areas. And they looked at their customers. Okay, so targeting the different types of customers using the cost leadership. Okay, but using also their own um, product knowledge and costs from their previous compared economies. Okay, so these three types of differentiation strategies they can use. Okay, so coming towards the end, what we set out to do, we looked at the Lo1 is be able to analyze external influences on organizational strategy. We looked at the initially what is strategy. We looked at the strategic analysis, how we can do the strategic management, how did it develop from 1950s to till today, the type of emphasis that were in 1950s, which is quite different to today. So you need to look at that one. And we looked at the strategic marketing process or strategic management process, i.e., developing from vision to developing certain internal options and external options, uh, developing long-term objectives, and looking at the strategies, looking at the um, implementation of these strategies, and choosing the best option when we look at the strategic process. In order to, we looked at today, we also looked at the SWOT analysis, and we looked at the pestle analysis. We looked at the Porter's 5 forces model to stay competition in competition, and we looked at how the Porter's model can be used for our advantage and We also looked at the case study of Apple. We looked at how these organizations can stay competitive compared to other organizations, and they're using the SWOT analysis, using the pest analysis, and using the cost leadership analysis. Okay. We lastly we looked at the how the company can move forward and stay competitive using the cost leadership and the cost differentiation and the differentiation of products so that we can stay competitive in the market. Okay. Any questions again?
No, sir, all clear.
Are you all okay? So this then you got some references here at the bottom. If you are stuck, please look at the references. Please look at the Johnson Scholl's book, Exploring Corporate Strategy. Please look at the Google, go on to NCFE strategy or other, type in the word Google on business strategy, and there'll be lots of materials available. But this material should be enough for your assignment purposes. And if there are no questions, I can call it a day.
Yes, sir, there's no question from my side.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else got a question?
No, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much and have a good evening.